Hi, Paula Cooke, Coastal Creations. In today's video, I'm going to show you from start to finish how to make this really large seashell mirror. It's a long video because it's a big project. I don't normally film my tutorials. This is my first one. The aspect ratio is poor, there's a bit of shaking. It's not been filmed the best, but I'd love some feedback from you at the end, and if there's any other things you'd like me to make, like a clock and do a tutorial, let me know in the comments, and I promise the next video will be more professional. I hope you enjoy this and good luck with your project. Hello, it's Paula with Coastal Creations Ireland. In this video today I'm going to show you how to make one of my large statement seashell mirrors. So we'll start off with the equipment you're going to need for this project today. So first up, we're going to need a mirror. You can use a wooden frame like I have here, a plastic frame, metal frame, even if you have one with a glass surround, whatever you've got. Ideally not too heavy because the shells is going to add an awful lot of weight to this. So this mirror was €6 at a charity shop. And here's a clock in the sort of style we're going to be working with today. Some other things you're going to need today, of course, lots and lots of seashells, a rough stubby brush, some pliers, a pen. If your mirror hasn't got any hangers on the back, some D-bracket hangers, a ruler or some calipers, some seashell crush. This is really important. It acts as a cement as well as a decoration to blend the shells and hide the glue. Then we're going to need some adhesives. We're going to go with hot glue. Hot glue has the advantage of it sets so quickly. For statement shells we can get them in place. And then we're going to need a flexible adhesive, either a clear grab adhesive or a silicone. We have a silicone in this gun, and here's a clear grab adhesive. We're also going to need a way to fix a bigger base at the top. We can't just have seashells in the air. I've used a coat hanger, and I'm going to turn this over and show you how I did that. Okay, so this is the back of the mirror. I've prepared this. I've taped around the edges to keep it neat. I've added 2 D-rings for hanging here. They're double screwed in. And my logo here. So on the top, I drilled some holes into the mirror. I used a digital caliper to mark them equally, or use a ruler. I drilled 3mm holes and then bent and inserted a coat hanger. This doesn't need to be super rigid because the shells will be glued to the frame and it'll get its extra structure through there. So we're gonna turn this over, and I have glued on some flat scallop shells to here to give me a base. Always start with your feature, whether that's going to be at the top and the bottom, or if it's going to be a horizontal mirror. So I've built my feature up here, and I have this half-cut Nautilus that I want to use with this design. I also want small white shells around here, and then the rest I'll plan as I go. So it's always good to have a rough design in mind. I also have these beautiful pearlized turbans that will probably go as a centerpiece in the side sections over here. So first off, use your hot glue and attach your base. You can use any sort of scallops, oysters. If you don't have long flat shells, just build it up with smaller shells. I'll show you on the back again how that's just glued onto the wire there. All right. first job I want to do with the mirror is cover this glass to protect it. So a piece of newspaper, wrapping paper, anything you have, try and recycle something if you can. You don't want to go too deep into the edge because the shells will stick to it, so it's fine to have a small 1mm gap at the glass. So I'm going to tape this up and then we'll make a start on the mirror. I'm just using a paper masking tape you'll get for pence at any store. Okay, so the first shell I need to decide is what I'm going to use for this very thin border. We have some cowrie, white moon, some strombus urceus or bear conches, some olive spires. Down here we have some turrets, chinna down here, a smaller turret, a very small white nassa, some monita top shells in a natural, and then the monita pearlized. Because this is such a narrow border, I don't want to encroach on the glass too much, and I'm going to go for the white nassa shells that are here. So I'm going to lay some glue round here and we'll get going with them. Okay, for this I'm going to use a clear grab adhesive, and I'm using the more economical foil. So I'm going to apply a very thin bead along the edges. Now this will stay workable for a good 20 minutes, maybe a little less, so I'm just going to do one strip to work on. Put plenty of glue down.
To get a nice firm adhesion when the mirror's cleaned these shells.
Here we have the white nassa. There's also other small shells. These are just fantastic. The Pyrene Lightning, and there's a more neutral version, so there's lots of alternatives there, but I'm going with the white nassa. When you place the shells, think of the direction they're going to run. I'm going to have them going up both sides and meeting in the middle rather than going round continuously. Your corner one place for bringing the pattern round, and then one by one. You could use hot glue to do this, but it's going to be very, very time consuming because hot glue only has seconds to work before it dries. And I'm just going to work all the way down. Okay, I'm nearly down to the bottom here. I'm going to check for straightness. Make sure they're all pointing in the same direction. And now the shell crush, to hide any glue that's remaining, I'm going to sprinkle the shell crush, and there's 280 grams in here. Then the stiff brush, very gently, because the glue's still workable, just push that in there. So I'm going to continue around this whole frame and get the inner shells placed. Any shells that have moved. Now that is 225 small white Nessa seashells on that mirror. The smaller the shell you use, the longer it's going to take. So 225, we'll clean that up and come back. So this is the piece with the shell crush tipped off. I just tip it into a shower curtain on the floor. I'll gather that back up and reuse it on the next one. So what we're going to do next is the outer edges. We're not going to use the flexible glue, we're going to use hot glue, and that's because we're going to be moving the mirror around to get to different angles, different sides. We're going to be tipping it up to clean the crush off, so we need a good firm stick with the shells we put around here. Because the shells are so small on the inside and we have this much thicker base here, there's a variety of seashells we can use, and we can go a little bigger. Some beautiful pearlized guam there. We can go bigger and we'll fill this up a lot quicker. So I'm going to decide which shell I'm going to put on the outside. All the shells I used today are available in my eBay and Etsy store. I'll put links on there. All my shells are hand collected or ethically sourced from the fishing industries. Okay, to do the sides, I'm moving the mirror down to the floor so I can catch all the shell crush, and I've to alternate between a white moon shell and a Strombus urceus. I did like the pearlized guam and the pearlized trocker, but they're very expensive shells and they're quite wasted on the side. So we'll go with the white moon and the Strombus urceus along here. So we're going with the hot glue so we get the instant grab, and so we can keep working on there. Once they're glued, I'll add the crush. So apply the hot glue, enough to fit about 3 shells, and get a nice even layer. Quickly place the shells. And then add the crush and press that in. Okay, so we'll keep going along with this. Clear off the crush there to give a fresh surface. Good even layer. The bear conches are lovely little shells, a lot of detail in the white moon. I collect myself on the Donegal beaches. So I'm going to continue going up this side and then we'll flip it over. Okay, so the edges on the mirror, and this is actually dried overnight now. And I've got together a selection of seashells, and I'm going to start placing them around the edge of the frame and deciding on my feature shells that will appear throughout the mirror. So I'll change the angle of the camera and get them arranged. Okay, so I've got together all the shells I want to use for the features in this mirror. The beautiful half cut Nautilus for the feature at the top. We have some large pearlized turbans, some smaller ones. I have some sand dollar biscuits. I have filled these with expanding foam to make them a lot more draw out. Some white urchins, again filled with the foam. We have some spindle shells. I have some cut trockers. I think I'm going to put them down on the lower corners here. Some fox head trumpets, some lovely large feature shells, very well reasonably priced. A lambis, and I have some pearlized cyan mussels to go through with the pearlized theme. And a favourite of mine, some lambis crocata. Same type of shell as the original lambis we have here. A few other bits and pieces around that I'll fill in when we go. So I'm just going to start gluing the ones I know I'm going to keep there. So I'm going to use hot glue. Just put plenty on the shell. If any spurges out the sides, we'll cover them later on. And just try and keep it uniform on each corner and get some symmetry running through the mirror. These shells will be fixed more in place as we keep going and everything connects and becomes one piece. I'm going to take a sand dollar next. And this big one here. I have a pecten scallop here. This is a radula. I'm going to put that on the bottom. And a rainbow abalone. This is a rainbow galaxy. Beautiful shell, pink, greens, purples, and the iridescent mother of pearl. So most of this we'll just decide as we go. I also have these cut shells. Again, these ones are pearlized, and some bonnet shells. Again, they're cut. We might use them. And I want the pearl turban at the bottom, but I want to add some filler shells before I put that piece on. Fox head trumpets. Again, all these shells are available in my shops, but get down to your local beach if you can and see what you can find. You can be quite surprised. Right. So stand back every so often, take a look at your piece and remember the lines we drew on earlier. We're not central here, so why that glue's still a bit warm, I'm going to start that again. So there's my central line. That's what happens when you talk and work. Right, there we go. And I knew that wasn't central when we hit this line here with the fox head, so that's why it's so good to mark out your pieces. Okay. Glue strands are a nightmare, and you need to pick them off as you go, or they will start getting tucked in all the small places. They'll tag as you're stretching across, and you just end up with a network. I don't know if you can see these, of it's like spider web glue strands. So we'll clean them off and take a look at our piece so far. We'll add some filler into there. Okay. So moving on up to the top, I'm going to turn the mirror around. When I'm working on a smaller mirror, I'd use a Lazy Susan, so I can just spin it around and work on all the angles. So the Nautilus is a feature. I want that looking exactly right. Here's my central line. Only the highest points of the shell are gonna make contact, so now the turbans. Remember, you're working upside down when you're pointing the shell. Having these pointing out to the corners, just giving me enough room to fill in the little corners in front. Keep standing back and looking at your piece. Okay. Right, I'm going to keep going in setting these feature shells around, and then we'll come back for filling in all the gaps. Okay, this is where we're at so far. I've glued on some key features. At the halfway point, I've done a scallop and a cut Scotch bonnet. Same over here. Then up here, I've gone for some very large fox heads. The pearlized turban, these are a luxury shell. You're probably looking at about £5–6 each for them. So I'm using 3 in this piece. The white urchins, the Nautilus, the scallops all around, the Siams here, and a white urchin. Now the fox heads down here at the bottom, they're repeated up here, and try and use some shells throughout the mirror. I'll put some more cyan mussels in here to match these. So to fill in, we have this bit here. These shells are Strombus canarium. I'm gonna put some hot glue to flood the area. And here I'm going to use some white icicle shells, and I'm going to try and repeat that spiral of the Nautilus. So these are actually Cerithium vertigus, but they're generally known as the white icicle. And I'm going to flood that with the shell crush. And pad them in with the brush. If anything isn't feeling secure, like that one, just take it out and add some more glue. As I touched on earlier, we want everything to fuse together to give the mirror a lot of strength. I ship these all over the world, and I've never had a broken piece yet. So have confidence in your work, do it right the first time, and you'll have a piece that will last forever. I'm going to get the camera mounted up high, and we'll carry on going round with the filler. Okay, so at the minute we're going to work on filling these gaps here. We can either use the hot glue, or we can go back to the clear grab adhesive and then work on multiple areas at once. If you don't have your confidence yet for placing the shells, maybe stick to the hot glue that can be corrected a little easier. So for these gaps, I've got some pearlized, or these really nice Turrid, I believe. These are Splendid, and I think they would work really well there. I'm going to stick with the hot glue for now. I'm going to flood the area. And then as quickly as possible, get my shells placed. And we'll get the shell crush. Really important pieces are really packed in there. The mirror's going to be very heavy and will be getting handled. I always go to the opposite side and complete them. It's really hard once you get too far ahead to replicate on the other side. The mirror won't be totally uniform, but it'll have uniform factors. So again, we'll put one up there. One down here, have some small chinner turrets. I'll pop one of them in there. And get the shell crushed. We'll flip this over and do all the gaps at the top and finish the header piece. But for now we're going to keep working down the mirror. The less we have to move it, the better. In here I wanted another pearl piece, possibly that one, or I have some pearlized gold turbans. First off, I'm going to add some icicle cerithiums to give a division in the shell. Over here, flood in the area with hot glue. This same method will work for chandeliers. The clock you see in the background there, and it's a great way to recycle things that you'd just be getting rid of. I want them pointing up to give me room underneath for the next set of shells. I'm going to use a shell underneath just to support them while they finish drying. Okay. So I'm immediately returning to the other side. So that's all the bottom filled. We still have one gap over here. I'm going to fill that in now. I'm using another pearl turban. Try a smaller one. There we go. A little gap in here. Now shells can come loose when you flood an area with hot glue. It can melt the glue that's already soft there. Again, a pearl trocker in there. some small turrets. This is the chinner, till every little gap is filled in. Down there. Okay, so we're back over here in this gap. I'm going to do a screw shell. And I'm going for a stack. I don't just want a layer of shells. I want the shells literally bursting out of the mirror. I work with hot glue a lot and I still burn my fingers most time, so just be careful with the hot glue. Here's a little olive spire, very small, pointy, perfect for cramming into any tiny little gaps. So other things you can add are starfish, sea glass, if you've collected sea glass. Anything you have around, even flowers. So just keep adding. That's my dog Ellie, she's come in her bed. You'll probably hear her snoring in about 15 minutes. Okay, so that's that area nice and full. And we'll come back to that later. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this on the other side, and then we'll move down to the next section. And once we get them done, we're almost halfway down the main structure. Okay, so that's this side complete. And as promised, this is Ellie. Okay, so I accidentally turned the camera off. So this is what I've just done. I've gone for the pearl turban in there, some more Strombus canarium here that matches the ones we put in the top piece, Indian Splendid there, Manita Bellichari pearlized top shells, and a sand dollar there. So I'm actually gonna come and repeat that over here. Okay, so I'm going to start off by flooding the area with hot glue. And then I'm going to use the pearl turban, and I've lost my seashells, a canarium and a pink murex. And some white icicle. Won't fit, so some turrid. The chinner. Okay. Shell crush. A bit more glue up here. So it's better. Lots of hot glue. And a small Strumbus Urceus, the bear conch, to fill that gap. Yep. And then we'll stick that down. Now we can tuck the next Strumbus into there. I'm putting glue on the high point so it'll catch on any other shells for that cementing effect. And take away the glue strands. And now I need a sand dollar biscuit in here. we see that. And I want some more pearl trockers. So, oh. I'm going to get glue in the crevices where it's going to be hard to fill with crush later. Some pearl top. To close up the gaps and stack shells up. We want a really full, luxurious feel. Right, we have one more gap to do down here. And then the first half of the mirror is done, except the extra work we have to do on the headpiece. Now don't worry about any small gaps that you're seeing that have missed the shell crush, because we'll be filling them in later on. And a pearl top there. To finish the sand dollar. Okay, let's take a look. At the piece as a whole. The next thing we're going to do is all these little dark gaps in here that hasn't got the shell crush in. We're going to fill them in so this part of the mirror can be here. We got some glue down here, it's all unsightly. I'm using a Gorilla Glue. I'm going to decant some into a piping bag so I can really get in the nooks and the crannies without getting glue all over the shells, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, so here's the Gorilla Glue. I can just get right in there. So any bits of wood I can see from the original mirror, I'm going to fill in down here. Glue gun strands again. Take them off whenever you see them. Really makes a piece look unprofessional. Okay, so with the gaps filled in, I can either turn the mirror around and start on the headpiece, or I can continue with the bottom, and I'm going to do that. So I should only have to turn the mirror the once, so keep checking. Just fill with your brush. And you can just move this about and reuse it. So first half of the mirror done. I'm going to try and keep the camera a little closer this time as I work on the bottom bit, so I'm working one-handed. Okay. Glue might help. I'm not adding any new shells in, I'm just working with the ones I've used so far now for the bottom piece. So I think I'm going to go with a small sand dollar there. And a little pearl. Some olive spires. Just under the sand dollar there. Some icicle or cerithium. Just going to bring that height out and up. Get an olive in that gap. If you can't fit a shell in, go for one with a good point on. There we go. So down here, I'm going to put a pearl in. Does not matter if one shell overlaps another shell, that's how we get the very full effect. gaps. These olives are fantastic gap fillers, and so are the China turrets. A shell I would not be without starting any piece. Okay, I'd like to get some guam in here. Lovely pearl guam. They have a pink tinge to them. We'll go in behind the sand dollar here. Okay, I'm pleased with that. We need some more small filler here. It's perfect for a guam. Some different sizes. So I would estimate so far on this piece we've probably used 225 just for the inner border. The outer border, I'd say we have over 350 shells on this piece already. So the more you can find and collect yourself, the better. Doing a custom piece like this can get very expensive when you're buying shells individually. If you look for some tropical shell bags, you'll get a really good mixed variety, and they'll often include a lot of premium shells too. The pearl eye shells are super expensive and a real luxury. One of these turbans will probably cost you £6-7, possibly even more. Something like this Nautilus, this is a B grade. It just has a couple of chips in. You'd probably get something like that for around the £13 mark. Whereas something like a fox head, you could get for it for around £2.50 for a really big shell like that. So just mix it up and have a few key feature shells, and then fill the rest with the more cost effective. You'll get the overall effect. So I'm just going to continue filling these bits now with all the shells we've used, and then I'll come back when I get to this bottom bit to finish off there. Okay, so the sides are complete now, both sides, and I'm going to be working on this bottom piece. I wanted the pearl trocker on, but I've been struggling to make it all work. So what I've decided I'm going to do, I'm going to make a bigger feature of the bottom, and I'm going to put this shell here and have this one coming out. Hot glue. Get the shell in place. get some shell crush in there. Just let that dry into place. I want as much of this shell to be seen as possible. Glue on the high bits, plenty. And then position that piece. A turret splendid. And one on the other side. Flood that whole area with glue. My dogs. And a Strombus urceus in there. No, I'm actually going to change that. For a pearl trocker. And then any small shells to fill in the gaps. That's a Strombus urceus I just had. Cement everything into place, as many pieces as it takes. And Strombus on the other side. And I think we'll use some of the large pearlized guam and some Manita Bellicherry pearlized to fill in those gaps. The mirror is less than 10%, 15% pearlized shells, but we get that pearlized effect with a few feature ones and then dotting some smaller ones about. Right, that's taking shape there. I want some features coming out of here. So I could use some screw shells in there. Something bigger, like a white mully. cerithium icicles. Or if we want something bigger, we have the nadalossum. They're a little too big. I quite liked the mully in there. Very similar to the pink Murex, but they come slightly smaller. Maybe here, just play about with all your shells. Till you get something you're happy with. Okay. I like the screw there. So that's a screw turtella. Don't rush the header and footer pieces. They're the key focal points of your mirror. That's why we've used our best shells there. Your focal point might be the corners. Right, okay. Now I have some of these fabulous Indian turrets. I need one more of them. One a similar size to the opposite one. You're going to need a large space to work on a project like this because you need so many shells around. That's why the mix bags are very handy when you're doing a project. You can get a lot of choice. Right, okay. And I think another screw. And then go for a splendid turret or an icicle. I use the icicles in literally every piece I do. They're such a versatile shell. Okay, a small one. Take that. And then I'll put the turret back in so that all fits. I'm not happy with that screw. I'm going to put a smaller one in. Put it down here. There. I'm going to bring the and that's it from the underside. And I'm going to try and get some pearl detail in there next. Okay. Now I have made some of these. These are made from Arca granulosa shells, and they have a pearl inside. They're really lovely to dot about, and you've got that 3-dimensional. I'll show you how to make one of them quick. So get 2 Arca shells, dot of glue in there, add in a pearl, these have a lovely totally flat horizontal lip, open it up and just let that dry. So we can place some of these. I've got some gaps down here under the fox trumpets. I'm going to use an Indian turret. Shell crush. And one for the other side. I would say I've already used probably 15 more glue sticks, and these are the extra long 30cm ones. If you're buying hot glue, make sure you buy the type for your gun. You get low melt and high melt. This gun is adjustable. I can change the temperature for whatever I'm using. So some Strombus Urceus in the bottom. If it's a tight nook, just glue onto the shell.
Can I get food, please?
Okay. Lots of disturbances today. We have 3 dogs, 2 teenagers, and a husband dotted about. Oh, and 16 hens outside. Right. So that's all uniform on both sides. I'd like to get some pearl detail in. I'm going to add a couple of the guam. It's perfectly fine to layer the shells up. It gives really nice effect on it. Okay. When I turn this mirror around, I might decide I want to add something else to it. We'll see. So I still have the tibia I haven't used. I think they would look quite striking in this last gap here. I have these lovely little ones I just built. I'm going to put one of them up here. And again, they can come apart when you're flooding with a lot of hot glue. So just be careful. And I'm going for a Manita pearl in there. Shell crush. And take out the glue strands. If you're not remembering all this by now at this point in the mirror. Right. Okay, so I want this tibia to be quite featured. So what can I put underneath? I like that there, pearl trocker. Just clear out. The crush, right, okay. Yeah, and then I think I'm going to have the tibia there. I'm just going to glue it on and then work out how to fill it. That's nice and raised. It's getting its statement. So we'll go for some small splendid turrets. So quite a few of the shells here today are new for me working with. I got a new supplier just before Christmas. And they are the guams, the turrets, and also these cut shells and the nautilus at the top. So it's been quite nice doing this piece. I'm going to tag that spindle tibia onto the fox head. And I'll finish off with, I'm going to flood some glue in there. And I'm going to go in with an icicle or a cerithium. Guam up on there. One in the corner. Any gaps, just use the little shells, plenty of pearl ones. And I want to add a pearl in here. use my prong holder. Small amount of glue, try and keep it in focus. Okay. And hold it for a minute till the glue grabs. And keep an eye on that because it can roll down. That feels quite good. I need some crush in there. Really liking how this is taking shape now. It's exciting to be thinking on the finishing touches. Nice, torrid, splendid. Crush. Now we haven't got a lot for the spike of more splendids here. Oh, we'll get one more in. If your shell has a point, it needs to be adhered to something else, so glue up the body. And then an icicle. I'm going to flood this last area here. And I'm going to finish with a manita down there. Just tuck that in. So we got the last area here that comes up under the trumpet. It's quite nice. Here we go, some very small shells. They're not going to touch the bottom, so I'm going to glue them up here. Another small one. So the glue just squeezed up a bit, but not a problem. The crush will cover that. Okay. It's coming down a little lower that I'm going to want under there. Nice pearl trocker. Guam in there. one little gap here. Need something super small. And there. It's an Indian turret. Okay. So that is this side all done. I'm gonna repeat that here, and then we'll come back to finalize the top. Okay, all the house drama is finished. Children are fed, and we're gonna get back to our headpiece now. I've got a, just zoom out a little bit. So we've got a canarium there. So first off, I'm gonna add one on the other side. So next, I'm going to layer some screw shells in there, I think, or icicles. Screws and icicles, okay, so here we go. I'm flooding along the edge of the canarium. And just start alternating between a screw and a canarium. Okay, and same on the other side. Ellie's snoring again. Right. And then I'm going to layer another canarium next to both of them. So once we complete this top piece, we'll then go over the mirror and we'll find all the little gaps, imperfections, turning it up to every different angle, removing any glue strings, fixing all the minor details. And then the piece will be finished. And we can add any embellishments we want to. We can add pearls, crystals, kind of bling brooches if you want a glitzy look. You can really finish the piece to your liking. Okay, so the next canarium check which way up it's going to sit. It's an interesting thing because these shells are always facing the same way. They're not a bivalve where you get the two halves like an oyster. They're always facing the same way, so you'll never get the symmetry. So that way we'll have to stack them like that, but the other way they might be stacked open to get that symmetry. So always check where to glue. And this type of shell is called a gastropod, which basically means snail. So the two main types of shell would be the oyster type, which are a bivalve, you get the two halves that fit together, or a gastropod that just has a single shell and a mollusk living inside. Right, so I'm gonna do the same with the spiky shells, icicle and screw. I'm going to put glue on both sides. I'll let that start setting while I'm working on this side. And a screw and a cerithium. Another canarium here. It's gone a little messy. Do not wipe hot glue off with your fingers. I'm pretty immune to the stuff now. I have a high tolerance, but it will burn. Last canarium on this side. And then I have this gap in the middle where maybe we'll fit a single screw shell in there. That's quite nice. I want that in there. There's not much to glue it to. Sorry, I was out of hot glue. Okay. So that's just a large, splendid turret. Get some smaller ones. Meanwhile, you can listen to Ellie snoring. That's all I hear all night long. we get one more in? Yes, okay. That'll cement them in quite nicely. Hopefully the camera angles are working not too bad. Right, okay. So stand back, look at your header piece. That's really nice. These scallops are just little hints of them now. They're no longer the feature, and these are actually UK scallops. Okay, so we're moving to the top of the mirror now. I've played around with a few bits and pieces. There's a few pieces I know I want to add in. I want to add in these corals here. I've played with various shells up here, trying to repeat themes, but I've decided to go with the strombus, but in this layer spread them out more and just see what I want to add in at the end. Now I have some artificial sea fans, or branches. They come under artificial florist supplies, and I've cut out the center section. So instead of this, I'm left with this. And this is going to go around here. That's it. So I'm going to glue that into place first, then any shells I add will further secure that into place. So I've mostly stuck with hot glue through this project, apart from the very, very small shells where we went with the clear grab adhesive. I'll fix this into place. So I roughly estimate so far on the mirror there's around 700 shells. So this sort of work, it is a labour of love. This video has actually been constructed across 3 days. Right. And just move on to this side now. I don't want too much excessive glue here on the header piece because I don't know how deep I'm going to put the shells. To save me fingers, I'm going to use a wooden push stick to just hold that down. I really like the white theme of this mirror, but there's still so many neutral shades in it. Right, so that's on there. And next I want to add in the corals to here. I'll bring this down. And there's a little gap in here. I'm gonna add some glue and put in a olive aspire just to give that coral something extra to glue onto. A little hot glue there. Again, so important to clean up as you go. And another olive in there. Then that area's nice and full. And I'll finish it with some shell crush. Use the wooden stick, soak it in there. And now onto the next side. I like the coral that way. Some crush. This is a bear conch or a Strombus urceus. That will lock the bottom of that coral in nicely. A little olive aspire in there. And I've just attached the coral to the scallop shell underneath as well. And I just repeated that on the other side. Right. Remove the glue strands. Okay, that's really pretty. Really pretty. Right. So next I'm going to add some more canarium. Just not happy with the stick on this. Forgive my plasters, I burnt my fingers yesterday on chickpeas, believe it or not. Right. So now to add the canarium, I'm also going to use the canarium just to finish along the top under those lovely cyan mussels there. One in there, and I'm going to flood this bit. So I've stopped counting the shells by now. But yeah, I'd say we'll be looking at 700, 750 maybe when the piece is finished. I'm sure you've noticed through this project the importance to have a variety of shells. And there's a white icicle to fill in that gap. This area here, I'll try and get that into view. Again, I'm going to flood that first. And there goes the glue gun again. Right, so I'm going to flood this in here. Canarium is in there. Some shell crush. So I've been reusing the shell crush, and from the 280 grams we had to start with, I'd say we've got almost half left. So that does go a good long way. Now for the corner here. Ooh, I think maybe a pearl. Yeah. And maybe some more white icicles. So. Some icicles. We have here. And I'm going to glue these on one at a time. Because I want to test the size, yeah, that it'll fit. And shell crush. And I just want to get that canarium attached a little there. Really take the time to make sure the top is super secure, because it's going to be getting, the mirror will be handled. And hot glue is pretty cheap. So I'm happy with that side. But there's some exposed glue there. I'm just going to cover that with some shell crush. Right, okay. So that's this side done. I'm going to repeat the process on this side, but for now I want to get this header piece done. This second row around here where we've added the fan. So I'm going back to the white canarium. Plenty of glue. going to place them on. Try not to work over your piece as I am, because if you do drip hot glue, you're going to have to take it all off. Right. One in there. So once we've got this done, we'll check the mirror all around for gaps and fill it in with small shells, shell crush. Remove any excessive glue and glue strands. And then we'll just be adding our, I guess, bling, any pearls, crystals, anything else we want to add to here. Okay, so we've got 4 canarium on there. We also have some small white starfish I found. I'd like to use somewhere on the piece. So let's see, one more, yeah. So one more canarium, I think, in these gaps. And that's really going to secure the fan on well for us. Right, there we go. Be a bit tricky to get them to adhere to the shells through the fan as well. Okay, that's done. I don't think I'm going to add any filler between these. I think it works the fan getting more sparse as we go along at the moment, but I do need something here for the header. When you get stuck on a piece, just start placing pieces till something looks right. Yeah, my final decision is the coral. And I think that might be our header piece finished. There's some glue here I want to cover. Going to put in a Strumber Cercius. Right, so I'm gonna finish up this last corner here the same as we did over this side. I'm gonna fill in all the little defects I can see, and then we'll move to the final section, which is our bling and embellishments. I'll be right back. Okay, this is the mirror so far, very almost complete. I've spent probably well over an hour removing all the tiny glue strands, bits of glue, filling in any gaps. It's 100% done. Get some needle nose pliers, some thin tweezers, go in all the little bits, remove any glue strands. A piece needs to look professional if you're giving it as a gift, if you're selling it. If it's full of glue strands, it's going to look homemade and not handmade. You want a professional finish. A lot of expensive shells have gone into this piece. All the minor details are really important. Right, so I'm going to get the camera mounted. I have the mirror mounted on a Lazy Susan now. I've cleared the table so I can move that round and we can be looking at the correct piece we want to be working on. So first up, the feature shell. I'm gonna add a diamante trim to really highlight this shell. I'm going to use an epoxy resin to do that. It's a 2-part adhesive. It's 2 tubes and you get equal amounts of both. This is a really smelly, strong, toxic glue. We need to mix that for 60 seconds. So we need to get working now. I got this diamante trim off Amazon, but I'll also be using some broken bracelets and jewellery, recycle wherever possible. So I'll try and get this in view now. So I'm just gonna get the diamante trim, try not to let the glass turn over, and touch the epoxy resin. Use your finger as a guide to guide the piece round. And I'm going to use a peg to hold it at the start. I'm going to cut that off now. Okay, so we've got the diamante trim on the Nautilus. I also want to add some trim here on the turbans. So I'll mix a little more glue. Again, just dab it along. I'm going to follow this spiral. Trying to keep the glue off any other areas of the shell. And don't overload because epoxy will run. And this is glass diamante trim. The plastic is not the same. This one's a lot easier. We just drape in. Follow the spiral around. And I think we'll finish that underneath. I'm going to add glue to the chain this time. Very pleased with that. That looks lovely. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. The epoxy will be dry enough to handle in about 20 minutes. As with most glues, it will take 24 hours to get the full hardness. So I'm going to finish this and then I'll come back. Okay, so we're done down here. That's the turbans and the Nautilus. The urchins, I have some nice pearl and diamante studs. I've already drilled a small hole. I'm going to add a little epoxy with a cocktail stick. And some on the top. I'm just gonna pop that on there, and I'm gonna come do the same here. You can put as many or as few embellishments on it as you like. The mirror's perfectly beautiful as it was, but some people just like a little extra luxury. Okay. A little more glue. Okay, so just look around your piece. There's another urchin here. I have some bigger toppers, but that swamps the urchin. So again, I'm going to use one of these small buttons. Breaking up junk jewellery is a great way to recycle and to get free embellishments. There we go. You could add brooches and different things for as much or as little glam as you like. Just wipe away any excess glue. The only downside with epoxy is it can yellow over time, so try and be neat. Now down here, there's lots of options we could do down here. We could just add some embellishments. I would quite like a starfish. Yeah. I'm going to use hot glue. One trick to avoid glue gun strands once you've cleaned your piece is to circle till the strand breaks, and then stick the piece on. Right, so I think I'm going to add some pearls inside here. I'm using my picker. This is fantastic for intricate work. And there's the pearl in there. So keep looking round your piece.